Beautiful.
Was it?
Snow was great. Best conditions we've had years.
Oh.
Put that on, yeah.
All right, we're recording and the audio's on, just so you know.
Yep.
Give it a minute or two. Yeah, I hadn't heard from anyone else. Hey, Bob, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
A success. Nicely done. If nothing else goes well, we at least accomplished that.
I was thrilled that you were gonna take this, control of this, that I had nothing to do with it.
That's not the chair's responsibility.
Yeah. Now, having said that,
It's fair.
you're not in terribly good hands.
Oh, I don't know.
Technology,
I don't
so.
know.
Shit. How's the weather, Bob?
Well, I don't mean to complain, but it is kind of cool by Florida standards. But
I set you up, didn't I?
you guys would be enjoying it.
Yeah, we were gonna go to Virginia near Washington DC next week, and we looked at the forecast. It's just like here.
Oh, it's cold down there?
Yeah,
Oh.
they weren't anything but in the 30s
Hmm.
for the whole week we were gonna go. We just
Why-
Canceled.
Right, yeah.
and called up United. And said, we just made the reservation yesterday. It says 24 hours. And well, they said it's 24 hours and 45 minutes. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. They said, well, wait a moment. Well, let me check. Came back. You've got the exemption.
You were 45 minutes late, they're saying?
We were, you could have,
Actually,
you
yeah.
could get your ticket refunded
Right.
if you cancel within 24 hours. And we were 25 hours.
Yeah.
So
Special rate.
I felt like I made $700.
There you go.
Special rate for senior citizens.
Yeah.
Hi, Eric.
I think we've got a quorum, which is something.
I was gonna ask you,
Yeah.
what is a quorum?
I believe 4.
Okay.
We're on 7, do we have 7, is that this thing?
I believe so, although I think we're gonna get an 8th. His name's been nominated, Bill, his name escapes me, but it will be voted on next week by the council.
Stephen,
Mrs. Am here, Stephen Zaborowski,
That's me.
but there's a new member as well.
oh, that,
So,
we had a new member, okay.
so Bill, I think we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Call to order. You, for who's present, please? Eric, thank you. So we have a quorum, so we can approve the minutes from December 10th. Any additions, deletions, edits, all those in favor?
All right.
Those opposed? All right,
Those
done.
opposed, get out.
All right,
Yeah.
do it yourself. Okay. First discussion item is picking up on the discussion of LD 1829. And the
Yeah.
work that the council did, I guess.
Yeah,
Earlier this week?
yeah, and what I include in the packet, I'll just kind of orient you to that. I know Steve has been interested in the matter. I think you attended the last council meeting, spoke on the matter. Just by way of background, last legislature, the legislature passed so-called LD 1829, which did a bunch of things, but essentially it was directed at increasing housing opportunity by way of, in some cases, overriding local land use and allowing essentially higher density. And that's a oversimplification. This was done kind of at the last of the session. Many of us were a bit caught off guard, and that's, you know, partially our fault for not following the ball as close as we should have. The good news is there's a delayed implementation for us. It doesn't take effect until the end of June this year. And then from town meeting towns, I think it's even a year after that or sometime after that. In this session, which is a short session, emergency session, or short session, there is a so-called fix-it bill. And that's what I included in your packet, because really that's the thing that we can affect at this point. The original bill sponsors, Speaker of the House, Fecto, was very clear that he's not interested in repeal, and he's quite proud of the legislation and its kind of policy purposes, but has signaled, and I think this legislation is an example of that, a willingness to consider modifications to improve, if you will. So the council, for its part, was and has been quite concerned with the wide sweeping ramifications of LD 1829, particularly with respect to how Scarborough is really an anomaly in so many respects in terms of we're not the problem, so to speak. It's other communities in Maine that have chosen by way of local land use decisions and other decisions to simply not create housing. So we felt a bit one size fits all doesn't feel right. And the council passed a resolution early in January, one of their first actions, which laid out a number of their concerns and did ask for repeal, but if that was not considered, they offered a number of kind of constructive comments that they hope will be taken into consideration. And then at the same time, this now it's called, I think, 2173 has been printed. I think it's soon to be scheduled for public hearing. So it's moving on a fairly quick legislative path at this point. So to the extent that this group, one, I think it's something you should be aware of. And to the extent you want to weigh in one way or another, that's certainly a point worthy of discussion on this table. I will say that I met with council leadership today. There will be an action item on next week's meeting, and it will be to authorize the manager to submit written comments and testimony with respect to LD 2173. And that's still in production, so I don't have that in front of me. But we think if there are some improvements, we'd like to see some further improvements, if you will. So the council, therefore the town, will be officially kind of weighing in. And that does put an advisory group to the council in a bit of an odd situation. The council's kind of ahead of you on this. But that shouldn't deter you from having an opinion if you do. So with that long wind up,
Well, you're working on that now, right? That statement or that position, or is that done now?
We have John Anderson, one of the counselors, took a very substantive swing at it. That's something that I'm going to be sharing with staff, and what's going to come forward will be kind of staff recommendations, if you will, and they'll look for council's general blessing that yes, these are generally the comments. The reality is the majority of our awards will not ultimately make its way into the legislation. It's just the reality of the situation. But I think there's some pretty important principles that I suspect the council will get behind, and we'll see if we can be successful. The thing about this is that it's highly time sensitive, and if you're not at the table and don't get your testimonial in time, it's not considered. So
They said there'd be public comment period. Do you know when that is?
I'll find out. I don't know that they've scheduled that, but I think the next step is, in fact, for public hearings to be held.
Is there any realistic expectation that they would take that? I mean, any of the input, it seems like it's backwards. They write the legislation, and then they do the comments.
Yeah, that's like the council does its work, right? You've got to have something to review and react to.
Yeah.
You know, an idea is really hard to provide substantive reaction to. So I hear you, but I don't know of another better way, frankly.
But the fix-it legislation doesn't have anything in it about basically the Speaker Fecto's vision for this thing, based on what he said. We're trying to get that towns that haven't grown and have not participated to participate. But while doing that, it makes us,
We're swept
we're
into.
swept into this
Yep.
growing faster than we've already grown. Right, so now Cape Elizabeth has to put in 3 more houses instead of, 12, they can do 15, big deal, right? So is there any talk at all, at any level of grandfather or giving relief to any towns that have already done this part?
Yeah, you'll notice the resolution speaks to that.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. The approach that this new legislation, the fix-it legislation takes is. The good news is it brings back in the ability for local communities to have a rate of growth ordinance, which LD 1829 cast aside. So
But it's
that's a win.
100% of 5 years.
It's a different methodology. It's 130% of last 5-year average, whereas the law always has been 104% of the 10-year average. So we think really based on that concept that Scarborough's done a lot already is we're going to be proposing yet a different methodology that recognizes historical performance. And frankly, for those that perform above a certain level are able to, their benchmark is something lesser, but for those that haven't, it's greater.
Great.
So that's the concept that I think we're going to be floating.
As far as members, do anybody get a strong feeling about this group's role? Should be doing any feelings about something we should do?
Yeah. I think we should be participating, it seems like, but we're not really, kind of going on one side of it, but I think that this is a good time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's anything that we would do that we didn't already hear the other night, right? So giving Scarborough a little bit of relief because we've done our part. I mean, we said that we only have to have an 11% higher growth rate to make the goal for 2030, right? Is that what we said? Something like that.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Anyway, but basically, if every town participated in the growth, we could meet our goal of 80,000 units. Yeah, so we just need to get some relief for the towns that have already grown. Right.
Does the council have expectations about our?
I don't believe so, and I think this is moving at, at speed that it's gonna be hard for any of us to react to.
And that's trying to be realistic about that.
I mean, I'll be really pleased if the council's able to kind of coalesce around some concepts and authorize me to advance those. If they resonate, if they actually make it to the legislation is a whole other.
Well, yeah,
Well,
Absolutely.
Tom's gonna get a sense of what the leadership would like to do very quickly. And
I did, and there'll be an action item on the.
yeah, and
Wednesday.
so that action item on our next town council meeting is something that we can react to as a committee.
I think that's important. It'll be
Yeah.
a matter of record, as to where we are.
Get on the record.
Sort of, at least get
Right.
on
Yeah.
fast moving train. Sure.
The problem is that that's still in process at my level, so it's probably not gonna be available till to Monday. It's the
Okay.
reality.
we can get it out.
But we'll get copied on it.
I'll make certain you get a copy, whether you have a member, you authorize a member to speak on your behalf is maybe a subject you should talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that, I guess, if no one else
Yeah.
feels strong about it.
Yeah,
If
I would think
if you're
so.
into it pretty deeply.
Do it.
I'm glad to just, once we get it, to do some email exchanging of ideas.
Yeah, you could do a straw poll. It's not the best way of doing business, but get a consensus by email. This is kind of unique circumstance. We don't have much time, can't convene another meeting. So Bill, if you can take a look at what we are recommending at the staff level, maybe provide your opinions to your colleagues that this is what I'd like to say and get their concurrence.
You want me to do some writing and back to you in writing or?
Email.
No, or what's most effective, and I don't want to drag you out another night, is to come and address the council. But short of that, email communication would be second best.
As you do, just keep me posted.
Well, there,
Yeah, so if we just get the thing, give the recommendation.
Yep.
from Tom. Just go back and forth with the council on email with some ideas and then.
yeah, I mean, we shouldn't encourage doing business, so to speak, out of the public meeting
Other
setting,
than
but I think given the circumstances and the timeline, that's the only way to be able to kind of share ideas and make sure your opinions are heard before the council takes action.
Yeah, I think in some respects it feeds into the work we're gonna talk about later,
Right.
it's just this housing assistance scope of work, you know, and. So it does weave itself in and out of.
Oh, I
things working on.
well, yeah.
Good, I'll circulate that, it may be Monday, so I apologize for the short turnaround, but I'll get it to you as soon as I have it.
Yep,
Okay.
fair enough.
Hey, Tom? Tom? Just a quick question, so I understand the timing. This is gonna be voted on by the council, at their next meeting. When's their next meeting?
Wednesday, the 4th, next week.
Next week,
Okay, so our plan is to circulate something to us Monday or Tuesday and offer our input before the council meets.
Yeah, it might be helpful if Bill's able to review it and provide some of his comments, and they may be as, I like these, I'd like to stand on your behalf and speak in support of them, or you may choose to have a slightly different opinion. Yeah,
And I don't read the newspaper anymore, so the pushback on the bill, was that coming from various communities or basically just us?
Scarborough's really stepped out and been a leader because we've just kind of got our act together sooner than others, but I can tell you it's a concern and a talking point in most towns.
Wyndham, they were actually, they were the only town that I could see stepped up in the early, before the bill was passed. Somehow they got wind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, so.
Yeah, they, I think many towns will be concerned or opposed for different reasons. I think Scarborough has kind of a unique reason, which is we've been towing the line for a while. And then to add insult to injury to require us to do more, it doesn't seem right.
That's pretty much kills your zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Fundamentally, it doesn't feel right that there's a huge effort. The core of this really speaks to our home rule authority and eroding that the state is going to tell us what's good for us. Whereas the law of the land for centuries have been communities can figure out what they want to be. We're not alone. Other states, there's probably half a dozen or 8 other states last year passed, let's say, similar things, but at the state level. And there's, California, there's other states that have had these sorts of things for some time. Massachusetts, I think, has them. So it's not unheard of, but it's a bit of an affront.
Well, I think it's the right question, it's just the wrong answer. It's, how do you motivate the towns that haven't participated versus penalizing the ones that have participated?
I think a point that is not lost on me and might be important to all of you is that even in the bill title, and I can't recite it, but it talks about affordability and keeps this referencing affordability, yet there's no teeth that requires affordability in the law. So I think the theory there is supply and demand, that if we shock the market with more units, by virtue of that, it's going to help with the affordability. There's probably some truth the economics of that, but it's gutless in terms of there's no absolute requirement of affordability.
And I think Scarborough is a good case that says that doesn't necessarily happen. And we have a lot of growth, but they're still very expensive. Most people can't live in that town. So we haven't really solved affordability crisis. If you go beyond, if you talk about affordability as everybody in the community, not just the ones that can under 120%.
Yeah, I think the policy objective is really housing production. I think it has economic development implications for, we want business to grow while their employees need a place to live.
But most employees can't buy a $800,000 home.
right,
So it's not gonna help business. That's the one thing when the council, Corey and the others talk to the business community. You gotta tell them, yes, you need housing, you need housing that people can afford to buy.
Well, let's face it, to make any inroads in this, it's not building single family homes, it's other housing types.
Right.
And that's where many communities have had an absolute barrier from their zoning laws. They don't allow multifamily, having more than 2 units. So that's gonna be what gets us there.
And the other thing that concerned me is speed effect though, made it sound like outside the sewer district, this wouldn't affect us. Is that true? I mean, it sounds like we still can have our zoning in those non-growth, non-sewer districts.
I believe that's the intention, but LD 1829 is written, opens the door, I think.
Does-
The real big concern, and we're blessed to have a planner who came from Texas and
Right.
saw explosive growth in the metro Austin area. And when the economics are such, because the density now allows land on the other side of the turnpike, these big tract developers can come in and actually afford to put the sewer over there and underwrite the entire cost of that because the density yields are such that the economics of the project all of a sudden makes sense. So that's the big concern, though it's not sewer today. With the sort of density that this allows, the potential is there for private money to come in and do it, and the numbers still work.
Right. I would assume we don't have unlimited capacity on our sewer capacity, even if the pipes are there. Are we limited at some level to how much we can process?
Sure, but there again, money can solve everything.
We have more than enough right now. I'm on the sanitary district. So we can handle the growth that's expected in the next at least 4 to 5 years.
And we've had good conversations with the superintendent of the district that
That's
They
a
will-
good thing, but maybe not.
they will control. They
Yeah, I
will,
know.
they're the gatekeeper. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tremendous business model. To my knowledge, they essentially have never built a sewer line. It's all done with private money, dedicated to them, and they get a ratepayer for life. And so, it's not that I would ever expect the sanitary district to undertake sewer expansion necessarily. I guess they did in the early days when they were up and to get up and running, but since then, it's all private development.
We're fortunate too, because our sanitary district has no debt. We're one of not many that are functioning with no debt.
Your reference to affordability, do you think that's gonna find its way into your comments, or you wanna rely on others?
It was the point we made in the resolution. It doesn't appear to change in this new fix-it legislation.
No, but I mean, that for the council's, message next week.
It probably will, in terms of just an observation that there's nothing in the law, still
Right.
nothing that requires it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I honestly don't expect there will be at this point,
Right.
but I think we'd be remiss not to at least acknowledge that oversight.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you for that
Yeah.
input.
Yeah, anything else?
I don't think so. Not for me.
The Burnham apartment part, before we do that, though, let me ask, there was, included in the package was, the Dunstan corner. Was that purposeful or never made its way on the agenda, or
Dunstan, oh, no.
it was the Dunstan?
Is that the one that's been denied?
The affordable.
Yeah, the affordable units that were added.
That's a Chamberlain project?
It's in,
I mistakenly put the wrong attachment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my mistake.
it's okay. just
Yeah, I
so we-
previously updated you on that.
Yeah,
That
that's what I
project's
thought.
moving forward through the planning board process.
Yeah,
Yeah, totally my mistake. I attached the wrong attachment.
that's okay.
Yeah.
We'll get around that.
Yeah, and this matter was a point of some discussion at your last meeting.
Yeah.
It is currently in front of the planning board. I think Zan was the one that was, interested in making sure we had an opinion, and thankfully Bill put something together, he endorsed it, and that's been sent on to the planning board.
This is Burnham. We're back.
Burnham, yeah. So I don't know that you need to do anything more, but.
Yeah.
It's on for discussion.
It's awkward in that there's nothing. I don't see where the developer's committed to anything specific on the affordable housing, affordable piece.
It's not a deeded.
It's not, but I can tell you, he owns and manages hundreds of other apartments in town, and based on his other projects, one of which is actually in Dunstan Crossing. It's kind of it's the apartment building closest to Route 1, if you picture, is Burnham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will be this is a replica of that. He's taking
Yeah.
those plans and moving them to a new site.
Right.
Effectively, what he does, the rents he's charging there fit very comfortably in what we would consider workforce. It's not deed restricted, but as a practical matter, it is gonna be a pretty important need.
Without covenants.
without covenants,
Which-
which just, that's the way he does his business.
It actually is better, in my opinion, because it doesn't create. Well, complexities and administration and all that.
Yeah, there's no guarantees.
There's no guarantee, but he's making it livable and affordable for a lot of people.
But he's a known quantity, and I can say, you know, what he owns and manages already, is meeting a need.
Right.
Just like that.
Most of his properties are affordable.
Yep.
They're not, he's
He's
not
proud of that.
charging any
Yeah.
minimum amounts on any of his
Yeah,
properties.
in his presentation to the planning board, he said that he targets people and rents to people making $17 to $25 an hour. Spot, so what's kind of that,
What's minimum wage now?
14 or 12,
More power to it.
That's all it counts.
you know? But
Yeah, that's probably approaching affordable, not just workforce.
Yeah, it is.
In that brand.
It is.
what's it, need, you know, I don't know. But
We can move on to the 37 Mill Commons. This is a discussion it's been ongoing,
Yeah.
and I think you wanna focus on the rental option, which doesn't exist currently.
Right.
And whether, you know, there's a situation, maybe you could just in a couple of words.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mentioned 37 because the owner of 37 is one that's kind of raised this issue to our attention. But I think the conversation would affect everyone in this class. I think there's 8 such properties. These are all in the downs. Just a quick background on this. This homeowner bought in a very low interest rate environment. She's now interested, exploring the potential of selling. Her life circumstances have changed. I think she's either married or, at any rate, in a different interest rate environment. And that single change really changes the economics, such that we ran the numbers, Brian and I, and she would be likely selling for less than she bought it for because of those circumstances. A lot of the variables would matter in terms of who that
sure.
buyer is and what their income, but on its face, it's questionable. And so she's has the luxury of not needing to sell it. And she inquired about, well, can I rent it? And we, it caused us to look at the agreement. We said, well, no. And this group talked about this concept maybe a year ago or.
Yeah, it was a year ago.
And Bill, I think you spent a little time digging into it.
Yeah.
So really the decision is that an option we'd like to add flexibility in this agreement? And then there's a practical aspect of how do we actually get it in the agreement, and not just this one, but the 7 others, because I think we do it for one, we gotta offer it to others.
I think that was our goal a year ago, was to try to open that up as an opportunity so people didn't lose trying to sell it in the environment we're in now, because like you
Yeah.
said, she had a much.
Be another
lower interest
option
rate.
for them to consider.
But we did talk about certain guidelines and then the burden shifts to you.
Yeah.
To do the implementation.
Yeah, so I guess under that scenario, I presume we would insist that she would sell it or rent it to a qualified renter. We now have this term qualified buyer.
sure, yeah.
Um,
Was that an 80% or 120%?
80%.
We could bump it up though.
There's a definition that.
Or we have to
back
keep
to
it in the
the-
same, it's keeping the same category. probably.
Right, it would require changing the definition in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
Not impossible, but we were at 120, we went to 80. I don't know that we want to go back to 120.
I think even at that 80, when she's at, she's probably still gonna make a little bit of a profit on it. But it's gonna pay her mortgage because she bought it at such low of an interest rate, I would assume.
Do we wanna have a discussion about whether, we allow these just. By the owner's election, or is there a test? Is there some reason? Someone wants to rent these, a hardship, something happens, a life-changing situation. Or do we just wanna let this,
I think
leave it up to the owner?
That's subjective, so subjective, but.
Let's,
I
yeah,
don't
very,
really get
Well,
into
you could define what a hardship is, so as to remove that. And Bill, what I would say is that if you require a choice to be rented to a qualified buyer, it's no different.
No,
Just-
I don't think so.
So we're still serving the same
That's the
population.
condition you're attaching.
Right, yeah,
It doesn't feel right to me to let her or anyone rent it on the
Open
open
market.
market for whatever she can get.
right.
Right. I guess gets us to where we wanna be, is that the qualified
Does.
renter definition gives us the somewhat affordability level too.
The only, from an administration point of view, it requires us to do some qualification, which is okay. The frequency of that, I'd hate to do it year over year. And kind of the testing over time. I mean, once someone, a qualified buyer buys, they can stay there for as long as they want. They could run the lottery and we don't means test them again. We don't check in. This invites a level of oversight that we currently don't have.
Right, I think one of the thoughts was that would you think about outsourcing this to? You know, and having the renter or owner pay for that fee for an underwriting and this income certification or. There's a lot of, the housing authorities do this routinely, so it isn't
Well-
like a burden.
You just made the comment that as an owner, we would never test her again. right?
No,
Why would we test a renter again then?
Their incomes go way up and down and then.
well, no,
Yeah, So is the owner.
no, I'm thinking about the scenario, just the transient nature of renters. They
Turns
change more
Unit
frequently.
turns over.
Yeah,
Oh, every time it
Yeah.
turns.
Generally,
yes.
it's a couple of
But
years.
we wouldn't necessarily, yeah.
No,
We
no.
wouldn't-
every time it
if the
turns,
renter
you've got to
didn't
do it
change, we
again
wouldn't
because
go-
the fundamental test is that they meet the income.
Right,
At the
So-
point they started.
But they
renting.
only have to do it when they do switch.
right.
And they might get a tenant in there for 5 years. She then gets happy
Or
with
6
the
months.
change of the
Right.
economic
Yeah,
rates and sells. So
Right.
it
No, I
only
understand.
happens once.
Yeah, I was just observing that we're likely to have more turnover with renters than, yes.
oh, yeah, true.
How many do we have total now?
I think there's 8 in this class
Okay,
category.
which isn't huge, so it's not gonna be a huge undertaking, but it's still a
Yeah.
little bit of a pain to have to do for you folks.
Can I go one step further, just as an inquiry? Mr. Chairman, like,
Yeah.
can we now or in the future? Write in some kind of language that protects the owner from this kind of scenario? Where there's a minimum they can sell it or maximum they can sell it for? They can never sell it for less than some kind of.
I'll let
formula?
Eric answer that. I mean, we've had this discussion, if Vesta finds itself in this situation.
Yeah.
I was a bit,
That's complicated. Yeah, there's not a perfect formula for it. It's things like historically low interest rates that somebody buys. high
Right.
demand.
Yeah,
Interest rates go up, prices go down. You know, the part for me that I often, Tom calls me a little cold-hearted, is that's sort of how the market works. Like, everyone who buys a house runs that risk
Mm,
at any moment, so there's some risk to buying a home, affordable or not affordable.
Yeah.
That we can't control.
and at the end of the day, that person will not be in that home but for this program.
sure, sure.
And they are benefiting for all the time they're in.
And if we give them a rental right, it allows them to, all right, weather the economic environment.
It runs counter to what we all think about home ownership, that we're building equity and that we're gonna, at some point as our life circumstance or needs change, we'll be able to parlay that equity into something different that's gonna meet my needs in the future. And that may not be the case here. I think for most of us, that's been the experience. Buying real estate.
Right, and that's the fundamental, well, that's, the problem is that wages aren't increasing with the cost of living, that's why this has happened.
No.
Right, if wages were increasing, even with the interest rates, that this may not happen.
Right.
But we're just not getting.
So back to the threshold question, I think
Yes.
adding this flexibility is an opportunity for folks to make decisions whether they want to sell and take a loss, or the rents are such that I can cover the mortgage and make a little money and go on with my life. I think it's very low bar. The kind of the legal aspect of this, I think we do it for one, we need to do it for all. And we can't do this unilaterally. These are agreements signed by the homeowner. I would have to believe that they would choose to give themselves more flexibility, whether they use it or not is secondary. But it's gonna take some effort to communicate out, to kind of coordinate, signing new documents, recording with the registry. It's not insurmountable, but I just want to make a note that that's just a piece that we'd have to think about.
So you need to reach out to all 8 and have them re-sign new documents.
Yeah, and I can predict what that's gonna invite, because many of these folks don't know what they signed in the first place. It's gonna probably be, education session.
Right, it's gonna involve some splaining.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Does it bump into anything to do with the downs? Do they have condo or homeowner restrictions? Are there rules that we might bump up against?
Good question.
That was my question. Are they allowed,
I don't know.
are they allowed to rent based on other covenants?
I can tell you, I own a condo in the Downs and it's always been rented.
Yeah.
So there's no prohibition, at least in my HOA, but I should look for no comments.
Yeah.
So, hey, can I butt in for a second here? I'm kind of confused because we're talking about allowing her to rent this out,
Yes, to a qualified renter.
and there's a section in the agreement that addresses that conversion to rental property. 6 point, I'm looking at it here, hang on, 6.3, I think it is.
That's what we're talking about amendment.
Conversion to rental property.
It did not speak to it. Didn't, you did some work on it, so.
It's owner occupied it's very clear to be owner occupied. Unless we've added something.
Well, I think this talks about a possibility that doesn't exist. It says in the event the town allows, well, we currently don't allow. But your point's well taken. Why would we have such a provision that speaks to a scenario that doesn't?
Yeah, when I looked at it, there was no framework, like how do you get the town to allow it? And we talked a little bit about process and unfortunately, that circles back to you.
But it also addresses affordability requirements as established in the ordinance. So whatever. I'm just saying there's something there that addresses it.
Well, I think what we probably need to do is it would be most logically placed in section 6.3. And maybe kind of build it out, that framework gets built out. I would invite some assistance in drafting language here. If anyone is willing and able to.
It's kind of looking right at you.
No, generally down the other table, not anyone in particular.
I think maybe we could all look at it and pick that suggestions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But I think we're generally in support of the rental option. We are in support of the rental option unless others disagree. And then how we implement it is really the question in the process. And coming up with a process that you could add to the, whatever that is, section 6.3, make it clear how this can happen. And I think, yeah, the reference to owner occupied only in the agreement probably needs to be modified to talk about the rental option.
For what it's worth, our definition of affordable does consider both rental and owner occupied, so I think that's good.
Maybe we could all just look at it and.
It might be worth seeing if Brian Shumway can recall. He's a respected opinion.
I think he had some notes or documentation on it back when we were discussing like a year ago, for some ideas he had.
I think
I couldn't find any notes, and I'll go back and look too. I was looking for notes later this afternoon. I couldn't find anything, but that's what I might have done with them.
It might be his personal
Yeah.
too that he had on his computer, because I don't think we did anything with them back then.
I'll reach out to Brian, just to see if he recalls and if he has an opinion on the matter.
Are you, do you have to respond to the
No.
owner? Okay.
Nope.
I mean, I remember we were all in favor of allowing this,
Yeah,
it came up in June to rent and make sure it was rented to somebody that, would qualify.
Yeah, I've had an ongoing discussion with the realtor that's representing this woman, and Brian and I met with her twice, actually. She showed great interest, and this is part of what I think we need to do is to educate the financial community, banking community, and realtors, about these things, because they look at it and have no idea how to move it forward. So we saw the value in spending some time with at least this one agent. And we can reap the benefits of that education out about.
It's the status of the house. Is it empty or is it
So it's still there. Yep. Yep. And I think it's fine because she's got a teenage son or a 20-year-old son or so that's still there and hasn't quite figured out what his next step was. So I don't think it's urgent, but I think it's something that we think makes sense. It's not gonna get done unless we do it. Or we're gonna be up against a very
No, it's, yeah,
crisis.
Their sons took over the payments and just called Phil.
Gonna say the realtor's not,
happened, you know,
the realtor's not gonna wanna hear that we told her she could rent it.
Yeah, well, the qualification is different for a rental, right? Renter. The test, the calculation.
It's still the general same approach.
60%, 80% of median income.
Yeah,
Oh, there's no, they don't talk about.
instead of a mortgage payment, it's a rent payment.
adjusted by housing size,
Yeah,
you know, do the HUD definition.
and we,
Total cost, they don't,
in the framework.
but in the ownership, they calculate mortgage and utilities and all that stuff, right?
Right, and so I think that's part of the framework we need to build out is what's calculated.
Right.
Is rent all inclusive of all? Is that your housing cost? In most cases it is, in some cases it's not. You're gonna have rent plus
Right.
utilities plus HOA, whatever the case may be. And so it's the same kind of income needs test, right? Once you know what the household costs are compared with income. Adjusted for deficits.
Maybe by the next meeting, we can have flesh this out a little bit, give you
That'd be great.
some help.
I'll make a point of including this as an ongoing agenda item, just so we can stay on top of it, it doesn't get dropped off.
Yeah, it'd be great. Try to get them
Tidied up. Yeah,
Yep.
just so. Somebody else comes knocking, we'll go. We'll- And this would this be standard procedure for any things moving forward, like the downs? Do we put that in the document?
These documents are specific to deeds, right?
7 units, 8 units, what'd you say?
Yeah, I think there's 8 that fall in this category. The Downs has met their affordable housing obligations, mostly through traditional rentals, mostly through, kind of conventional affordable housing development.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah,
kind of
oh, I'm sorry,
outliers.
I misspoke. Dunstan Crossing, 4 new ones coming up. Right?
Yeah, we'll have to have a similar instrument for those.
Administratively, that's a bigger challenge.
Yeah, I don't know, it's not a similar instrument, because these are home ownership, so these are all 8 different deeds.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a single landlord, and the requirements will be on the landlord to annually report to us that their
Yeah.
tenants meet the requirements, so it's a little different in that
Oh.
regard.
Oh, but, so the ones at the Dunstan Crossing, they're gonna be rentals?
Yes.
Right off the bat. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So that's what makes these unique, is that they're individually owned, sure.
Next item is the housing study, ongoing discussion of housing study. I don't remember the last time this was circulated, you know, the outline, I think you took it over,
Yeah.
The
Tom.
first time, we had the one from the last study.
Yeah, and then Tom took a crack at this, there's still a couple of typos in there, but,
No, sure.
you know, this is kind of where we're at before it goes out for RFQ, was that the process? Or-
Yeah, Bill and I chatted earlier, because normally we'd have to wait for budget authority, we still need to secure that, but we don't need to wait for the next budget. We can go to the council and get them to authorize the use of some of the affordable housing reserve funds for this
Right.
purpose. What I would suggest is that we come down with a scope of work, because this is specialized and kind of professional services. I might even do an RFQ, a request for qualifications, so identify a consultant up front. And in doing so, say, this is generally the sort of thing we're looking for, so we can get a consultant that has done this or can do it.
Mhm.
And then work with them to really kind of flesh out a formal scope and a cost. And with that information, we go to council and secure the money and, you know, bring them on board and get the work done. So I'm looking for your further input on, does this, at this early point, describe well enough the kind of body of work, the work that we think needs to get done? Keeping in mind, it will likely get refined once we have a consultant on board.
I like that idea, and because there's just maybe so many things we can take advantage of, somebody who's trading in this,
Yeah.
this kind of report. And I'd like to know too, like, you gave us some data from the Council on Governments.
Yeah.
You know, maybe we augment that, you know, because if there's something we can help with our defense of our opposition against parts of, you know, the LD.
Mm-hmm.
1829, then maybe this study can help the town in addressing some of that.
Yeah, I think a piece that's missing here, and it speaks to that bill, might be and GPCOG data starts to collect that on a regional basis. And they have, I think, an eye to go on statewide basis, but putting Scarborough in a regional or statewide context, I think, is part of the conversation. You know, we know what we see and what's happening here, but I think it's always helpful to relate it to what's happening elsewhere.
Yeah.
We think we know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I could do something,
I think you did.
Do
I think
more
you-
than our part affordably either. As
Yeah.
well, so. That's like,
I think you left the door open. You
Yeah.
talked about LD.
Yeah.
1829. I just don't know what that means, and I think we're gonna need some help with that.
Yeah.
But even in, you know, if we could recruit someone to like come up with an outline, and some of these things might be too much, you know, too much work with little impact. And then I'd like to get some input on that.
so this is a fairly specialized field, I would say. I'm at a deficit. I don't have contacts that come to mind immediately. Folks that I would normally go to are no longer in the business. So I guess I invite all of you to suggest names so I can reach out to them.
Is Jeff Levine doing stuff like this?
You might.
Jeff's good at partnering with people, so Jeff might be the front guy that you contract with, and he brings on a specialized sub. That's how we've used in the past. He doesn't have the expertise, but he knows a guy.
It's
Or you
okay.
can, yeah, you can just refer us to somebody.
But are we okay with the RFQ process?
Yeah, I just have, I'd like to expand, because we're the housing alliance, not the affordable housing. I'd like to look at the bigger picture. The issue that people, they need to be making 200% of the mean income in this town to be able to afford the mean house. So what I'm saying is there's a big gap of people, I think, this is my theory, there's a big gap of people that making over 120 and under 200, they can't afford to live here. Because there's no tax incentives, there's no programs. They just can't afford to live here. So my question is, could we get some help in how can we address that issue? How can we provide incentives to the buyers? Tax incentives, first time home buyer incentives, those kind of thing, and how can we incent the builders? Then we give builders a tax credit if they build a house that's $500,000 house instead of a $90,000 house. What have any communities had? What are the strategies that help us build? To me, I call it attainable housing. It's not affordable because it's not deed restricted, but it's housing that are people who live here and work here that want to live here and work here and afford.
So
Does that
I,
make sense?
I heard you say a couple things, that you really, first and foremost, want to know really the state of housing. You know, what's being built, what exists, and how's that compare to household income, so what,
Right.
is there a
And
disconnect?
that was in the June presentation that this council did for the, that was all, and so that kind of updating that information. Because that's where I got some of the data like I'm referring to. You know, mean income for a two income, 4-person family is 130 in that study. They can afford a house at 470. There's no such thing. So how do we help? Is there anything we can do to try to make people that can make a good living afford to live in this town? Does that make sense?
It does, I think that's exactly what we're trying to do. I think there are some bullets in here that would
But it
address
says
that.
you know, young people live here. It's not just young people, it's lots of people.
Right.
Um,
Can I butt in for a
Not being
second?
built.
Yep.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
butt in just for a second? I was kind of thinking the same way. We all know that there's a problem. And you guys sitting around the table know this a lot better than me, but to me, however you describe it, the guidelines just aren't working, right? The 80% medium income, whatever, and all that stuff, that just doesn't work for our town, and what I'd like to see in this report is some discussion of that and maybe some suggestions as to what can be done to try to fix that gap. I mean, you're talking about, that's government issues or that's whatever, probably won't happen, but I'd like to see something in there that says why this hasn't worked. Um, and so the other people around town can see that and read it and understand what's going on. Yeah.
It hasn't worked because the developers aren't
Right.
required to do it and won't do it unless they're either incentivized or required.
Well, that's my question.
Yeah, we know that, but I'd like to see something like that in the report. That's put on paper and some suggestions on, even if they're unrealistic, maybe how do you make this work in today's environment? How do you make affordable housing work?
My suggestion on the LD 1829 was don't give a builder density relief unless they're gonna build a house that people in town can afford. So in that, let's call it the 500 to $800,000
That's what
house.
happened in Dumpster Crossing. 20 years ago, we gave him density bonus so he could build more single-family homes. In exchange, he's providing 10 affordable units.
Yeah.
It's just taken 20 years for him to actually produce that.
Yeah.
What happens in other communities, the more often scenario is they pay their way out of it. They pay the in lieu fee.
Right, but I'm saying even above that affordable or workforce deeded. What are non-deeded incentives you can give? To help buyers buy those homes and the builders build those homes and still make a profit. Is there anything we can do?
Yeah, I think any consultant, that's part of what generally we're gonna be looking for is yes, a range of strategies and options we can consider.
Any fine tuning to the scope right now that you got anything specific? Because I think it's an open end. Once we have a consultant to work with, we can talk about it for the fine scope.
Right.
And I think what you're talking about is valid and.
Yeah.
And, but I'd like to move this forward in terms of getting the scope.
That's fine. I would just throw in something like at all income levels or something.
That's fair.
Affordable housing at all income levels, not just the
Housing.
highest, all but the highest.
Let's benefit from free professional opinion. So identify the consultant we like.
Yeah,
And then work with them to flesh this out, and they'll tell us what it's gonna cost, and we can choose.
The consultant may say, the Mayberry report isn't a good starting point, which is fine too. This outlines a lot of time truing up to Mayberry report. Maybe that's not good for us. We just spend more time.
So what I'd probably ask them, I call it an RFQ or request for qualification, so I would provide this general scope of work, I would provide the Mayberry report and say, give us a you know, an overview, no more than 2 pages of what your approach to this project would be. Just as a way to get a flavor of, you know, generally what their angle was. The simple point of that is to identify and select a consultant, and then you work and you actually collaboratively put together sort of the scope of work that is informed by their professional opinion.
That sounds good.
The key will be finding qualified
Well, yeah,
consultants.
I think asking main housing would be.
Yeah.
A starting point. People use the market studies. Or are they all aliens from out of state?
Whoever's gonna give us the highest.
Right, and lowest price to do the work, right. I think it's pretty worthwhile engaging with main housing, saying you wanna take this on and see. Because, you know, they actually have staff that. Yeah, there's a lot of this information, not that they're gonna, share it or put it in a form we like. And there's a group we could ask around as to who else we might know professionally.
Yeah, can I lean on you guys to source some of that? I mean, I'll reach out to Jeff, I know him, and see if he is interested or knows someone that is.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna take.
Yep, and then do one of you reach out to main housing to see if they've got a list? You
I
know,
can do
sometimes
that.
they keep a list. I'll do it. That would be helpful.
I'll reach out to you. Sure, I know some people.
Adam,
And
I would check with Adam.
yeah. And if you wanna do that, that's fine, if you get that before I do. Helps out, but I think if we could get the short list for you.
Yep.
We'll work with you on a short list and move this.
Let's commit to this, that we'll have that work done. I'll have this cleaned up to the point that it's kind of ready to go. You know, we'll have it on your next agenda with the goal of finalizing it and being on the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Start shortlisting the folks
Yep.
that want.
Yeah.
Good. I will carry that one forward as well. Like, we have no one,
I
no
know,
public here.
I was gonna say,
It's cold out there.
Is it cold tonight?
Yeah.
There's no going along.
No,
so no public comment.
doesn't appear so.
Okay.
I do have one item that I should have included, but I'll just mention in passing. The town for over 20 years have had a school impact fee that authorized through state statute. That was antiquated. Leroy can attest to the fact that we now have a new school project, so we've got better, more definite numbers. We've got a project and a cost of that project. So we're in the process of recalibrating our school impact fee to reflect all of the updated information. This matter has gone through our finance committee, staff worked on it for quite a while. We were waiting for the school to get approved, so here we are. And it's now ready to go through this council adoption process. It's almost a doubling of the fee, not surprisingly. It's an expensive project, it hasn't been updated in years. So part of this, we're doing a special outreach to the development community because they'll be interested in the matter. The Downs has already submitted some comments on the proposed draft, and interestingly, one of their arguments is hard to refute in that they've built 623 units so far. Currently, there's only 62 kids coming out of those 620 units, so it's essentially 1 kid per unit. Excuse me, 0.01. Small number. Whereas the rest of the town is 0.235, I think.
So 1% versus 2.5.
So I think they can make a reasonable argument, and the data supports it to some extent, that they're, so far, the type of units, largely driven by number of bedrooms, in fact, is producing less students. And how that translates into being treated differently, I don't know. But I want to make you aware that this conversation is going to be in front of council starting second meeting in February, kind of continuing into March. So you'll hear that, and that, I don't know if that's something, maybe we just monitor the comment from the public and the development community, and there may be a space where you want to comment or not.
It may be one of those things we talked to our consultant about too.
Yep.
Which is matching up bedroom sizes and family sizes.
Yeah,
But you're gonna
I
hear
think we-
back from me and Tom about how the council reacts to this.
I think giving Downs any special treatment, is a political nightmare.
Yeah, fair point. Yeah, not lost on me.
Or me.
I'm also not
So-
surprised they're saying we're different.
Right, but
Yeah.
they're not different if you just say the size of the house and the number of bedrooms, right? So, yes, if you're building a 2-bedroom, 1,200 square foot home, yeah, you're probably gonna have less likely to have a child than a 4,000 square foot home with 3 bedrooms. Well, so why can't we give the fees based on just the size and number of bedrooms
Yeah,
for everybody?
the way our methodology works, single family is kind of the bogey, that's what we base it on, and then everything else is a percentage of that number. So other housing types are lesser, pay a lesser fee, so it already recognizes that it's not as granular as counting bedrooms.
We should.
Starts to get complicated.
We were talking about this at sanitary too, trying to count bedrooms, and it's very complicated to do
Yeah.
it that way.
So, we do have a one pager, I'll send this around to you, just so you can see a quick overview of what the proposal is and the methodology used. And then if you want, we can add it, I'll confer with Bill for your next agenda, but this is gonna be a conversation happening at the council level for the next 2 months or so.
Thank you.
Okay?
Anything else? This evening?
Good discussion. Covered a lot of ground.
Entertain a motion to adjourn, thanks.
Second.
Consensus.
That worked out perfectly, because I'd already typed that.
Unanimous.
All right, very efficient, 1 hour, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, see you, Bob.
Sorry I was late.
Good night.
Oh.
I got stuck at one of
Is
those
he
AI
abroad?
lights.
Is he somewhere in
I,